I remember the very first day that I stepped onto a college campus as a student. And I got to be honest with you, I was only really there for three main reasons. I was there to get financial aid, I was there to stay out of trouble, and well, if I'm being honest, I was there to meet girls. I also can recall the overwhelming sense of nervousness that I experienced. The sweaty palms, the knot in my throat, the rumble in my stomach, kind of like the one I'm experiencing now, actually. I also can remember feeling like an imposter, feeling like I was inadequate, like I didn't belong there, like people like me don't go to college. So I wore a cloak of shame regularly because of it. This was my experience as a formerly incarcerated person trying to pursue something different, something new, something that wasn't normal. And what is normal anyway? Normal, if we define normal, normal would be to conform to something that's standard or expected or typical. But how did I get here? How did I get to a place where it was much more normal for me to have been incarcerated or been addicted to drugs or homeless or even shot at, but yet it's not normal for me to go to school, to go to college? You see, the thing is that although the definition of normal would be as such, and our normality would then be based on our definition of normal, the thing of it is that we each have lived very unique lives, very different life experiences, and have been in very different environments, which have shaped our definition of normality. And so it's interesting because if we look at our society, if we look at our government, and we look at the very foundation on which this country is based, is basically evolving definitions or singular definitions of what normal is or should be. And so in a country where there's over 2 million people that are currently incarcerated, and 1 in 3 children, predominantly of color, have a single parent that's been incarcerated, it really is no surprise that we have created a culture of normal, of going to incarceration for some of our youth. Now let me tell you a little bit about my background, about my pathway, my journey, and the different events growing up that have shaped my normality. And I grew up in a normal community, you know, one with gangs, drugs, and violence. At least that was normal to me. And let me tell you about my home. My home was a single-parent household where my mother had managed to escape the very volatile relationship with an abusive alcoholic who was my father. And a result of such, she had acquired a job in this community at the shipyard, right down a few blocks down from the house. It became normal for her to often have to work 12-hour shifts in order to provide for us, which would normalize the fact that I would have to walk myself to school to and from at 7 years of age. I'd like to share with you a specific moment at 7 years of age that I experienced that really did leave an impression on me. And on this momentous day where I had walked myself to school, I was elated. I was excited. It was an exciting, beautiful day. It was going to be a momentous day this day, because this day I would go to school and I would be getting recognized for academic accomplishments at school. And so as I arrived to the assembly and I look around and I span the guests that were there, and I see everybody else's parents but mine, I still held on to the thought that maybe she'll show up. Just maybe she'll show up. And as I got called upon the stage, and as I received the certificate, and I realized that my mom wasn't able to make it, and the devastation that came right after, That day did become momentous, but not for the reasons I would have thought. No, that day became momentous because that day normalized for me that I wasn't important enough, that academics didn't matter. Why should I care about academics? Because nobody else cares. And that day normalized my low or no expectations for myself. So not surprisingly, as I continue to grow as a young man and in my adolescent years, if learning how to be a young man wasn't hard enough with no good role models, here I was at 15, now being homeless, now having to deal with a whole set of new issues. Like, where am I going to be safe tonight? Where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? So then it became normalized for me to have to take on certain behaviors, certain characteristics, to be manipulative, to be aggressive, to be conniving, to be able to survive. And so then came on this new set of normalities. The fact that I would be desensitized to repercussions such as incarceration, that I would disregard figures of authority, that I would use drugs and alcohol to mask any emotional voids that I had dealt with growing up. And so not surprisingly, as an adult, serving time or doing time became a lot more easier for me. Sharing spaces with grown men, restrooms, showers, having a hypervigilant sense of my surroundings, these things would be normalized as well. Living the life on the installment plan, as we call it, because we would think that we could leave for years and come back with our children and loved ones and think we can just pick up right where we left off. And boy, was I mistaken. Because I was doing to my children exactly what was done to me, leaving them fatherless, leaving them without guidance, leaving them without hope. And so here I am, being released my last time. And upon release, all these new things started to happen, all these new expectations, all these things that were normalized for me throughout my life, I now had to challenge if I was expecting to have different results. And so as I talk about the reintegration process and the expectation, and as I describe my academic journey that I mentioned earlier on, and it was riddled with challenges and barriers that would come up. And I could boldly and gladly tell you that 9 years later, 9 years after challenging myself to be renormalized, if you would, I can gladly tell you that 9 years later, I'm now obtaining a master's degree in biology from one of the most academically rigorous institutions in the world, UC San Diego. Mind you, I am only one of thousands of people like myself that are formerly incarcerated, that have used education as a vehicle to redefine what their normal is and to change the trajectory of their lives. Now, self-advocacy, self-love, failure, success, and most importantly for me, faith is now normal. And it doesn't matter on what side of the wall you all are. Complacency when it comes to being or defining our normal can be dangerous because we need to be lifelong learners. But I leave you with a really good note. There's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for us to continue to change what normal means to us. But the first step that we need to take is to become aware. To be aware of how skewed our perception or definition of normality has become. To be willing to challenge the cycle of expectation, of failure, not only for ourselves but for our children. And to redefine what normal means by taking a look at those expectations, taking a look at the challenges, again, not only for us, but of others. And so I tell folks, you need to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Because it's only then that you're going to yield the results that you really are looking for. And I give the analogy that it's like working out. It's like working out, it really is. Because in order to experience growth, in order to get stronger, you need to experience pain. You need to experience hurt. And while we have all made mistakes in our lives, our mistakes don't define us. Our mistakes are but another facet in this jewel of a life that we have. And mistakes are only one of those facets. And our other facets are in our roles as citizens, are in our roles as fathers, as parents, as sons and daughters. And they all equally, like a jewel, contribute to the worth. And I want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with reminding you that our past doesn't dictate our future. And we have ongoing opportunities in this thing we call life to be able to redefine what normal means to us. So I encourage you, and I thank you for allowing me the honor to come and share with you today. And I'll leave you with asking yourself what normal means to you. Thank you.